Good morning, everybody. If you're still in the back, come to the front. The last rows of seats we can leave empty, so come to the front, join the session, because it's going to be hot in here. So if you're still in the last rows of seats, get up, move forward, make new friends in the rows before. Make it cozy, make it nice, because we're going to have a long-awaited session. Because every project needs funding, and with every degree that the climate gets warmer, the costs of acting become higher. And every day the inflation is rising, projects become more expensive. It still is a good business case, because doing something is still much cheaper than doing nothing. But on the long term, and the returns in the future are hard to finance today. Is there a problem of a lack of money, or is there a problem of a difficulty of getting money to move? That is the big question. And to what extent does that require rethinking the way we think? I myself, on the side of this job, I am the chair of a NGO. We want to replace prisons by something better, and we are very used to look for charity. They give us money, but that is more difficult. Subsidies are drying up. Philanthropy is also not getting so easy. So the philanthropy that is left is like the Serengeti in the dry season. Everybody crowds around the few last water holes, and it's very crowded there. When preparing this session, I thought to myself, why are we looking for philanthropy? We are challenging a public system that has a lot of money in it. We claim we can do it better for the same amount of money. We have a business case. So just as an experiment, I made a pitch deck to the EIB. I will show it to them in the break. So a little bit of rethinking of how we think about money might open doors that were previously unlocked, or maybe we didn't even see before. So in this session, we are going to look at how we look at finance. We have 5 cities that propose to you and pitch their business case. It's not so much about what they do, it's about what is the financial model and why do they think they are bankable. We have 5 experts from the whole wide range of the financial world to give advice to these cities. Are their projects bankable? How can they make them more bankable? And what should they do to get the money flowing for their project? And we hope it inspires you to go home and say tomorrow, Monday at the coffee machine to your colleagues, hey, about finance, there's one thing we should do different from now. So that's hopefully you go home with one of those ideas. At the end, of course, we ask what it is. We want to hear your opinion again. So can we go to the voting system? And of course, we want to hear your, I'll go out of the way of the QR code and you can take a picture. It's the same QR code as yesterday. Continuation is very important in projects. So take a picture of this QR code, or if your camera is not good enough, ask your boss for a better phone, and then go to menti.com and enter the code 68468531. 68468531, and you'll get to our questionnaire. Can we go to the next question in this one? Or I have to forget I don't have my remote ready. Can we? Yes. So here the question is, where do deals most often die? Do you say, well, there's not a bankable structure. The problem is too many decision makers. There's no alignment in who does what. The political cycles are shorter than infrastructure timelines. They don't match. The revenue model does not make a business case, so there's not enough revenue coming in to make it financeable. No one dares to take the risk, or public authorities don't look for finance well, or they don't speak the finances language, so they can't get it moving. While you answer this question, I'm going to get forward our range of experts. Going to get a big round of applause for Gilles Badeau, Elena Gordieva, Alberto Francesco Anfosi, Simon Castres Saint-Martin, and Delphine Kenyar. Good morning. Good morning. Gilles Badeau, you're the director of the Public Sector Lending Department at the European Investment Bank. That's, I can say, the public bank of the European Union, and you give loans to public authorities for financeable projects. What is the most important thing you look for in a project to say, yes, this is something I find bankable? It's on. You have to give it on.
Okay. Let's say the EIB is a particular institution because we are a bank and we are a European institution. So we look at the soundness of a project on an economic point of view, if technically it has been well prepared, if, of course, the procurement has been done properly. And on the other side, we will look at the financial risk, as we do for each of the projects. So it will depend on who is the borrower, what are the revenues from the borrower, and of course we will look at the credit aspect as a normal bank will do. So if you want, there are these two elements. So on top of what a normal bank is doing, we are also insisting on the quality of the project, its sustainability and its impact for the green transition. I think it's key.
What is mostly missing? Did you get the project files on your desk, and what is the one thing you think, this I miss?
You know, it depends. It depends on the typology of project. Most of the time, what is important is that to make sure that the project is properly sized for the community that it's supposed to serve, and then you know it's a very broad topic that you're raising. But let's say that you've got the economic point of view that is very important. And how to best structure the project. And for that, we have also advisory services that are useful, that can help shaping and structuring the project.
Do you get much more projects on your desk than you can ever finance, or are you really looking for more things to finance?
Let's say, you know, every year we are financing throughout Europe, I'm speaking about my department, around 31 billion euro of project, which is quite heavy. I think that, you know, we are a bit constrained and limited by the type of project we can finance, because on our side, we are also the climate bank, so we want to finance projects that are going in the right direction for climate change. So in fact, we are a bit constrained by the eligibility, but let's say that, no, we could do a bit more.
Okay, well then we encourage people today to really get more projects on your desk tomorrow. Elena Gordieva, you're the Director, Head of Infrastructure Europe at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the EBRD. In what way are you different than the IEB?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here at this event today. In many respects, we are very similar when we look at projects. We need properly structured, bankable projects. At the end of the day, we are a bank. We do expect those projects to, or clients to repay us. And of course, projects need to be properly structured. I mean, EBRD differs on governance side from EIB, and we cover different regions. We work in Central Eastern Europe, Central Asia, Mediterranean, and expanding in Sub-Saharan Africa and Iraq. EBRD does not finance projects in Western Europe, unlike EIB. EBRD ownership is global. It spans 77 countries, from North America to Asia Pacific. And plus, we have European Union and the EIB itself as shareholders of EBRD. And we are independent bank with a board that decides on projects, you know, not on specific policy.
Our list of criteria is roughly the same as the EIB. We only have a different geographical interest. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Too much. We do public and private as well, so and equity and different structures. So we are very similar, and we have mutual reliance with the EIB when we work across a number of countries, and we jointly do projects, relying on each other.
A lot of overlap. Alberto Francesco Anfosi, you're the Secretary General of the Fondazione Compagnia di San Paolo. You're one of the oldest and largest private foundations in Europe. You trace back to the 16th century, and currently you run an 8 billion fund to promote cultural, civil, and economic development, mostly in Piedmont, the beautiful region we are now. You give grants, so people don't have to repay you, unlike with the banks. Then how do you calculate your return on investment, and what kind of project do you typically finance?
So basically we look for impact. So we look for metrics that enable the fact that our money is spent in an effective way, in a meaningful way. Of course, the money that philanthropy can put on the table is a fraction, is maybe 100 times less than what is needed for a large project to go live. But we look for that part of the project, of the process, that makes the difference, that maybe is a bottleneck, maybe is something that otherwise would not make the project go live and things like that.
So you're more seed money or accelerator money than the real funding. You are active in this region. I Googled you, like, wow, I want that too. Are there organizations like you around Europe, or are you super unique?
Sure. No. There's a lot of philanthropy in Europe, of course, and I think you all know. We are all associated to Filea, which is the European Association of Foundations. So you can Google Filea and look all the members of Filea. In each country, you have many foundations. Of course, we are very different. So there are foundations that are global. Some of them act at a large scale, or national scale. Some act very locally. So it's a zoo.
There's a lot, but you have a European umbrella to guide you further. Simon Casa-Saint-Martin, you're the project director at Meridiam. You're a global investment and asset manager based in Paris, and you specialize in developing, financing, and managing long-term public infrastructure projects in Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Unlike your partners to the right, you are for profit. But they want their money back, you want their money back. Do you look very different at the business case than banks?
Well, obviously, yes. The investors that give us money to invest in projects, they expect return, indeed. But not only, what they really expect is actually a mix between return and impact. So when we actually analyze a project, what we do is we look at the returns in terms of cash, of course, but also we look at what are called the SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals defined by the United Nations. And for each of these topics, we look at the impact we have. And at the end, we have a mixture of all these, and we just make our investment decisions based on the impact and the returns.
So are you much more like the public banks than we sometimes think?
Maybe the biggest difference is that what we provide for infrastructure project is mostly equity, whereas banks actually, I know these banks are also doing equity, but they're mostly doing debt. And so the difference between equity and debt is that if things ever go wrong in a project, they are repaid first. Like debt is repaid first. So they will accept a lower interest rate. However, equity, we are repaid last, or at least at the end of the process. So for this premium risk we are assuming, we are actually expecting a slightly higher return indeed, yes.
Yeah, more risk, higher prices, yes. Delphine Kenya, you're the director of Capital Hub. You empower cities to achieve their climate goals. And you basically guide them through the forest of financing and connect projects to financiers. Every city's mission gets linked to you. What is the biggest misconception you see in cities for how they look for money and where they look for money?
I think the biggest misconception is that cities would tend to think that capital follows the good ideas first, the big transformational project in a city, where in fact investors would be looking for clear governance, clarity of execution, low execution risk, speed of deployment, and of course returns. So this disconnect, because of course investors are interested about impact, we've just heard it, but the first step is just to reconnect exactly, not just come with the idea, but then,
Can we see the results from the question we had? I once did an event for nature conservationists and banks, public and private, and they were like sniffing each other a little bit, and they had to really learn each other's language and each other's way of working. It was more a cultural thing, and the banks said, yeah, we want to finance you, we just don't know how. Is that the same for cities?
Yes, I think it's absolutely the same. You know, there could be a little bit of, you know, queries from the cities. Are those people asking questions because they want to take some ownership away from me, and from the investors? But this thing is not going to work if I don't get the information I'm looking for. So there is some, let's say, connection, financial connection to be done, but it starts very simply, you know, scoping, clarifying who does what, the governance, the execution project.
And we see a lot of it's about the time. Political cycles are much shorter than infrastructure takes longer. Is that something that can be bridged?
It is true, but I think with the right engagement, investors are quite generous of their time. It needs to be structured, and that's what we are trying to offer.
Okay. Well, then let's see if we can bridge the gap between cities and bankers. Let's bring out our cities that have something to sell. Can I get a big round of applause for Antwerp, Sarajevo, Guimarães, Vilnius, and the multi-city joint procurement? So, good morning, welcome. We have 5 beautiful projects. Each of you get 4 minutes to pitch a project. Don't talk too much about what you do. Mostly talk about why it should be bankable and they should give you a lot of money. And afterwards, we ask 2 of the experts to give you some advice to take home to make your project even better. We are going to start with the city of Antwerp, where Sam Verbelen is going to talk about your heat network. And I'm going to give you a microphone. I think you're sitting on it. No, then I'm going to steal one of your microphones. Yeah.
Good morning. With 10 years of experience, I would like to start with sharing this. Heat transition is a tough nut to crack. So in Antwerp, we decided to stop treating it as a set of projects and start treating it like what it really is, a city system. A piece of infrastructure that is built to scale. And here is what it means for us. We are aiming to replace 355 gigawatt hours of fossil fuel heat. That's roughly the demand of 35,000 homes. That reduces 71 kilotons of CO2 each year. And we are not doing this for one neighborhood. We are building a citywide system around 6 clusters that can be supplied by several baseload heat sources, supported by peak and backup capacity. Technically speaking, we are designing for 70 megawatts of renewable baseload and another 70 megawatts of peak and backup capacity. So, if the plan is there and the sources are there and the benefits are obvious, what is the real barrier? It's not the technology, it's financing. Because the asset and the financing model do not match. Heat networks are long-lived infrastructure. They require high upfront capital. They have payback periods of 30 to 40 years, and in the early years, they carry ramp-up risks as connections grow. At the same time, we must keep heat affordable. So tariffs are constrained by an alternative-based price cap to protect households. So the mismatch is simple. We are trying to fund mission-critical infrastructure with tools built for short-term projects. There's one more challenge that matters in real-life delivery. In several clusters, there are multiple actors. That can work well, but creates a practical issue. It's transparency. So our approach is to emphasize a clear partnership and governance model with our distribution system operator and a strong coordinating role for the city to align actors around long-term performance and public value. Now our message is positive and pragmatic. Cities are ready, the systems are defined, the public value is clear. What we need is financing that fits the reality of heat networks. programmatic, long-term, risk-sharing instruments, not fragmented one-off support. And in practical terms, if we want scale while keeping heat affordable, we need around 30% of co-financing for heat network infrastructure to reach bankability. Heat networks are not just projects. They are the backbone of climate-neutral cities. Thank you.
Wonderful. Big applause. Stay with us. Gilles, I think this happens around Europe, especially Northern Europe. Every city is looking at city district heating, and every city is struggling getting it financed. What are your experiences in how to unlock finances?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the topic of district heating is very important because it's a way to use the best the energy that is produced by waste to energy or by data center, and to offer this heat to the citizens in a very efficient way. So it's really part of the green transition. So we are happy to support this type of project. We've got numerous examples that we are supporting. I'm thinking about Riga, thinking about Klaipėda, Stockholm, Paris. So there are cities that are structuring their district heating systems. The most important thing is how to structure it. I mean, you know, I'm responsible for public financing, so I finance municipalities or municipal companies, but we can also do this through SPVs, through schemes that is delegated to the private sector, in which case we would need some equity from investors like Meridiam. But what is important is to have a clear view of how the project is structured, what are the sources of revenues, and who is taking the risk. Because this is the way we have to start in order to have a proper long-term view on the project and to see how the loans will be repaid over time. So let's say that we try to offer financial solutions to each of the situations that we meet, and we adapt ourselves to our clients, to their needs, and to the structure they've put in place. So that's the way we tackle this sector, but for us, it's a very important sector, it's eligible for our intervention, and we are more than happy to support this type of projects.
Yeah. Elena, what advice would you give to make it more bankable?
Thank you. I think it's absolutely right. District heating is capital-intense projects. Affordability is important, and therefore tariffs are capped. We have a long payback period, so it's essential to involve, and I would echo, a system-level approach where you engage with different suppliers, where you work and set the framework correct, reliable, that investor can trust on a long-term planning basis, that municipal ownership is also an option and should be explored as part of those large-scale projects. Similarly, for municipalities, it's important to drive and be decisive, to play a decisive role here and de-risk those projects. It can be done by addressing anchor demand through connection to public buildings, for example. It could be through contributing to initial planning development costs. It could be through streamlining or supporting permitting for companies and working with different players, as well as, again, equity. Equity is important, and to bring funds like Meridiam and the likes. So tariffs alone cannot cover the capex costs, but it's important to work with different players and blend financing from different sources. And for example, again, there are government programs in different countries that support various aspects like innovation, digitalization, that is feasible to apply and obtain. There are EU funds that support programs and provide financing for this through concessional loans, grants, or just funding. And like EBRD, EIB, and other multilateral development banks who also work and support, and that all in combination ensures that risks are properly allocated and the deal can be bankable.
Wonderful. Sam, is this advice you can work with?
Yeah, it's really nice to know that these institutions of yours are ready to support us, and up till now we have been planning this district heating program and using the financial instruments we have at our disposal and know. But it would be great to get into contact with you and start further discussing on how we can structure things.
Okay, a coffee date is being made.
Yeah.
At the same time, I hear you have to think cleverly. Digitalization, use residual heat from other places, get different streams of funding together. At the same time, we are in urgent need. I support some cities in the Netherlands where they have made deals with their social housing corporations. The director of the housing corporation said, listen, city, I have climate goals too, so by the end of the year, I need to know, are we going to have district heating or not? Because if not, I'm going to buy 1,000 heat pumps this year. Can you deliver this in time?
We have exactly the same discussions in Antwerp with our social housing company, which is, of course, a very important customer of the district heating system that's being developed. So they push us forward to get a quick investment decision.
Okay, well, we're going to have you a quick coffee date so you can do it in time. A big round of applause for Sam. You can give the microphone to Sarajevo, to Dalia, because also a big question for a lot of cities is how to get our public transport expanded and get it climate neutral as soon as possible. So to hear about our public transport project from Sarajevo, Dalia Stečić.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak about Sarajevo in the context of public transport. What I would like to point out at the very beginning is that public transport projects so far have been, I would say, the most progressive point in decarbonization of Canton Sarajevo, hoping that with this mission label it will open new opportunities for additional financing to complete the projects that we have already started. So far we did a lot in terms of renovation of fleet for trolley buses and trams. We purchased 15 new trams, we bought many trolley buses. It is to be also supplemented with an additional fleet, but we are currently working on the reconstruction, actually the development of a new tram line to suburb area of Hrasnica, and afterwards we are planning to expand that tram line towards additional suburb area that is the area of Dobrinja. Also, since the functional urban area was developing climate city contract in a way to join all these three units, City of Sarajevo, Canton Sarajevo, City of Istočno Sarajevo, we were thinking that expansion of tram line towards Istočno Sarajevo that belongs to another entity, but which citizens face with many problems regarding commuting on everyday basis from Istočno Sarajevo to the center of Sarajevo. 30,000 people use their personal vehicles in order to reach the center of Sarajevo from Istočno Sarajevo. So it takes additional financial means and funds, at least 60 million plus euros is needed to complete at least the first stage of the projects which are planned in the strategy, but also in the climate city contract. I think this has a great potential. It will have an enormous impact on decarbonization of functional urban area of Sarajevo, namely the Canton Sarajevo, but also it would create great benefits for the citizens in order to, in a way that it will facilitate the everyday commuting from one part of the city to the center and other way around. So we consider this to be our priority, but of course, what is the problem? Our finances, the credit capacity or the loan capacity of Canton Sarajevo is quite limited. We are working on the reprogramming and restructuring of the existing credit all the credit lines so far we took, but we also need some kind of support in a way that at the state level there are so many problems which impede us from reaching the funds from the growth plan, which hasn't been adopted, but it's a way to get the funds from the WBIF. So if some kind of impact and additional pressure could be made, because obviously state level and entity level politicians are not showing enough willingness to understand the problems of ordinary people, ordinary citizens. We really need a multi-sectoral approach here, assistance of the banks, but also understanding of institutions of the European Union that for some reason we cannot do it on our own. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Big round of applause. Elena, you have financed public transport in Sarajevo before, so you have experience. What advice would you give them for their governance to make their projects more bankable?
Thank you. Indeed, Sarajevo is a long-standing partner of EBRD, and we financed a wide range of projects across different municipal sectors in water, in energy efficiency, in buildings, in public transport, of course. In public transport alone, we provided 5 projects, just under 100 million, supporting the purchase of rolling stock on trams and trolley buses, ensuring comfort and green credentials of the city, as well as rehabilitation of tracks and extension of tram tracks, as well as supporting digitalization as part of this with the traffic systems. And all these elements are important, and when we talk about governance, it's about, on one hand, you're financing infrastructure, but on the other hand, you need an entity, authorities that brings everything together to make sure the system operates as one. Another aspect to look at tariffs as part of this, and on subsidy framework, and of course to work around, and especially if thinking about PPPs and in whatever form it will come eventually, it's important to have clarity on risk sharing and on how it will be financed through tariffs, through public service contracts, availability payments, and of course operational aspects are similarly important to ensure procurement is done in a transparent way, operations are run in a transparent way, and you know, there is a clear balance between public and private sector. And if I may just very briefly to say, building on what Capital Hub does, supporting cities to structure projects, EBRD also has a Green Cities program that aims to work, and actually Sarajevo is one of the green cities that we have that supports and makes sustainable future for cities and residents through preparation of green action plans.
Great, wonderful. Well, Delphine, what would you give for advice if you want to bring in the private sector? What should they do to make the private sector also feel confident? Feel confident to invest?
Thank you. So I completely concur with EBRD. Remember, at the beginning I mentioned to get private investors to come in, you need clarity of governance, and to reduce the execution risk, the speed of deployment. The more information is provided in terms of simply, you know, who are going to be the entities, who are going to own the trams, operate them, what is going to be the demand, risk exactly what type of volume, what is expected in terms of traffic. So very simple, you know, information, and maybe stage them, because here it looks like a big project over time. So maybe increasing confidence of the investors by saying, I would expect this from you at this stage, and then from this other type of entity, perhaps a public one, with a longer perspective, really outlining who would take which risks would be very helpful.
Yeah. Is that advice you can work with?
I fully agree with the advice that you provided now, I would be more than happy if regional and higher level authorities would accept these advice, because I think that the form of public-private partnerships would be the best solution in order to integrate all the ideas that you mentioned so far, because the risk would be shared. The risk wouldn't be only on the part of the public sector, but also at private sector. I think it's a perfect balance and a perfect option for the solutions to be found in next future. However, we do have some problem in terms of understanding of public-private partnerships. As you well know, we do not have so far in Canton Sarajevo prominent examples of public-private partnerships. Again, I would like to associate that with a kind of fear and psychology in our society, that public-private partnerships are more associated with privatization process, and there is a very negative attitude when it comes about that form. And I think it's on the side of banks and international institutions to break the ice and to somehow spread the awareness and to assist local, regional entity, state level authorities to get the better understanding of the form of public-private partnerships, because that's the reason we don't have them so much. And it's a perfect solution for risk sharing and for joining all these models into one integrated system. So yes, I fully agree. Thank you.
Beautiful, that's advice you take home. And I think also the advice is, if you are a strong captain on the ship, all these risks of, oh, are we privatizing, are we still having the public interest? If you are the captain on the ship, it must be much easier. If you have good examples of public-private partnerships, come to Sarajevo to help them. Big round of applause. Yeah, these are all projects that have a ticket machine at the entrance or at the heating. How do you finance something that does not have a ticket booth at the entrance? We're going to hear about the green belt from Guimarães from Alberto Martin.
Good morning. Guimarães is a city with a strong identity, a UNESCO World Heritage City, the cradle of Portugal, and a municipality with a long-standing commitment to sustainability. But behind this history, you face a very urgent challenge, one that many European cities are also experiencing. Our cities are becoming hotter during summer, rainfalls are becoming more intense during winter periods, green space and biodiversity are under pressure, and our citizens' health and well-being increasingly threatened by extreme climate events. In Guimarães, the data is clear. Between 2013 and 2023, the share of municipal territory recording surface temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius increased from 11% to 42% in only one decade. This trend is strongly linked to the expansion of impermeable surface and the loss of vegetation. And it shows us that climate adaptation is no longer something for the future. It is something you need to act on now. This is why the Guimarães Green Radial Strategy is so important. Developed by the Landscape Laboratory and the Municipality of Guimarães within the framework of the EU Cities Mission, the Green Radial Strategy proposes a continuous green infrastructure network that connects urban and rural areas through the restoration of the green-blue corridors and free green belts expanding around the city's historical center. It connects parks, ecological corridors, water system, urban forests and agricultural areas into one integrated living system. This is not only a landscape project, it is a climate adaptation strategy. The concept of the green belts has already been successfully explored in cities such as London, Berlin and Vitoria-Gasteiz. What makes the Guimarães approach distinctive is that it is designed with a focus on ecological restoration and connectivity according to our own territory. The first ring is the most immediate priority. It covers 11 kilometers and approximately 735 hectares, and directly benefits around 40% of the municipality's population. Its estimated budget is 2.8 million euros. The first ring connects existing green assets through new green corridors, proximity parks, and natural gas intervention. The second ring expands this logic further, connecting the urban center with the peri-urban and regional landscape, including rivers, forests, and agricultural land. To bring this vision closer to the implementation, the Green Belt project is being developed with the support of MIP for Adapt, European platform connect to the EU mission on adaptation to climate change. This support helps Guimarães structure the Green Belt as a strong adaptation project with a clear technical basis, measurable climate benefits, and the condition needed to apply for future funding. Our current goal is to attract investment required to make this green belt a reality. The benefits are clear: reducing urban heat islands, enhancing water conservation, capture carbon, restore ecological connectivity, and improving daily access to natural for thousands of residents. And this is what makes the Green Radial strategy so powerful. This is a strategic project built on evidence and designed for impact. Every decision is grounded in climate data, solar exposure analysis, soil mapping, and biodiversity as assessment.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, these were your 4 minutes. Applause. Simon, from a private perspective, what advice would you give? Because, I heard a lot of benefits, ecological, social, etc., but I heard nothing about revenue, and squirrels don't pay taxes or entrance fees. So how would you look at this from a private perspective?
Well, from a private investment company like ours perspective, I would say if you want to finance that kind of project, so these green belts, I think what we need to do here is to kind of reframe what returns mean. Because, okay, there is no tariff revenue here, but that doesn't mean there is no return or there is no value creation. And actually, I think there are great returns in this kind of projects. You reduce the urban heat, you reduce the air pollution, you might even reduce the public health costs in a long time. So these are actually all great returns. But the question then is, how do you capture part of this value creation and redirect that money towards the financing structure of the project? Because if you do that, if you manage to capture part of this value creation, which is there and massive, then you can have a very robust financing structure through the private sector. Good question is how to do that. Well, I'm assuming the land price will increase quite a lot directly next to the green belt. So maybe an option might be to capture part of this land value increase and redirect it toward the financing of the project.
Have you done some of the calculations of how much money you're going to earn or save in future costs?
Yes, you have an estimated budget of 2.8 million euros to implement the project. So this is our first perspective. So we don't have any, you don't see in the few years make easy to get the funding, but for us is a project very important.
Okay.
You can
it's important.
simply, yes.
We're going to help you to make an Excel sheet with all the benefits. You can put a price on basically all of these things. And next time you also not only show how much you need, but also how much you're going to win. Alberto, how could you, as philanthropy, help perhaps making this Excel sheet? Or what could you do to accelerate this?
Exactly. So I try to show you how we think about this thing. So since it's a very good project, interesting and so on, we could either, as a foundation, think of financing the first ring. For 2.8, I had 2.2, but it's always the same. They increase them. Is a sizable amount for some kind of foundation. So one could think, okay, I can fund it, provided it's a proof of concept for Belt 2 and 3 to become sustainable by other kind of funding models. So this is the if. If this is true, then maybe we can fund the first step. Another way to think about this is where are the pitfalls, right? For example, you have a cost, but you don't have a revenue stream. So we have some suggestion. Maybe we can fund a feasibility study to see if this is something that has a business model there and a business plan. We can fund a business plan. Maybe we can find out that the turning point is collect meaningful data. So you should provide the project with IoT, with a green digital twin, with something that will help city to prove the savings. And maybe this is something that philanthropy can fund.
I recognize this a lot from conferences I do about health tech investment, where a lot of health tech entrepreneurs said, I got seed money to develop something, now I want to go to market, but the financiers say we want to see a proven product, but they say I need money to make a product proven, and also this is somewhere where you can bridge the gap and say, hey, we have a small part that is proven concept, now the big financiers can come in. Is this some advice you can work with? Is this advice you can take home and can make your project better?
Yeah, yes, sure. We are in all days you are learning. So for us, the focus is make a reality this project. So we'll try to find funding, and this is our main goal. So
well, I think there might be a lot of cities here already made these calculations and did the calculations. What are the benefits? Yes. They're going to probably help you make this.
Very well.
Thank you so much. Big applause. Yeah, and now we go to Vilnius because they want to set up a climate fund. To hear what they have to pitch is Agne Akminiene.
Perfect.
Oh, perfect.
Hello, everyone.
You keep the microphone a bit closer.
Thanks. Citizens know that climate change is real, and we need to get some of them on board. They really support cities' action to climate neutrality, but now it's not enough. And here we meet a gap. And gap is between city ambition to become a climate neutral and citizen engagement, because now engagement is quite low. We have a solution. We have a solution that works in our city, otherwise I wouldn't stand here. So the solution is a climate fund, Don't Heat Up. This is a community-driven project when communities by themselves implement climate actions and they respond to their neighborhood's needs. For example, what communities did, they have bike racks in a school or kindergartens, they have fridge in their community center, and instead of wasting food, you can share it with your neighbors. So this is just a few real examples. So citizens know how to act, they know what to do, but they need a support. And here we come with our project to support them, and our support is trust, small-scale funding, and this funding is up to 10,000 euro per each project. And the main idea of this fund is that it's driven by private finance, EU grants, but no public money, no municipality money. So this is the main idea. And till now, we are very thankful to EU mission because this climate fund was launched by a pilot program, and we had a possibility to try this model to see what works and what we need to improve. And now we are in other stage. We are planning to scale it because we see how this project is successful. Each year we receive around 60 applications, and for us it's quite a huge number. In 2 years, this fund was established 2 years ago, and our budget in 2 years it was 100,000 euro, so it's quite impressive. But now we need to scale up, we need to grow our fund, and we are looking for different opportunities how to do that. Mission-driven partnerships, EU grants, private investors, philanthropy, and much more. So we are very, very open to that. I think most of our cities, we share the same issue, yeah? How to get citizens on board and how to empower them to become our partners on climate neutrality. So we think this project could be also scaled and tried in your cities, because first, it gives trust between communities and municipality. Second, you can measure the real impact. And third thing is scalability. So my closing line is about, usually policies, they work from top to bottom, but now it's time to work from bottom and to empower our citizens to act and to become our partners in this climate neutrality journey for more sustainable future. So to grow up is, to grow our fund is one of our aim, but our main goal to make citizens change their actions. So, and we can't give up at this journey. So thanks for having me here, and don't hit up.
Beautiful, thank you so much. Alberto, how can you make this interesting also for the private sector?
Yeah. I think that the main point here is to build on trust, so make it even more, since you have the public sector there, so it's already a good signal of trust. If you want to crowd in more private sector, you need maybe to work more on the governance side, on the transparent evaluation of projects, how you do the call, how you select projects, and so you could reach a 4P project, no? Public, private, philanthropic project, where the philanthropy can help in the governance of the system, if the goal is to get the basket larger. Another way is to work in the sequential funding. So this can be seen as a seed fund. Then you can have a follow-on fund, and maybe it's not that follow-on could be not a grant but a blended finance. But of course, you have to design the project from scratch to be of that kind at the end.
Yeah. Delphine, but what do we need to do to really make this a big fund?
To make it bigger. So if you want to stay true to the initial intention, it's very important to, yes, clarify what the fund can do and wants to do. If, for instance, you're open to get seed funding from private equity, for instance, it may not be the case. There are some funds, for instance, who are trying to achieve similar things and restrict access of capital to different sources. So think about who could be funding the fund and how you could attract them. Because philanthropy or private equity is not the same thing than EU grant. Then I think we could really help with thinking about the pipeline, because this is also how the fund is going to operate in practice. And there will be some ways to make the fund maybe more permanent in its funding, even from philanthropy or from the initial, let's say, funding you receive. The problem is you want to scale. So having some kind of a revolving structure that is attractive would require to have the adequate pipeline to feed, you know, the fund. And that's quite easy given, you know, the enthusiasm of clearly, you know, the city and what citizens want to achieve.
That it's a fund from a risk perspective. I see two things. On the one hand, I think a fund is less risk because you put your eggs in a lot of baskets. On the other hand, I see more risks because I have to assess the risk of each basket. How do you do the risk assessment for a fund compared to one big project?
I think, you know, what usually funds try to address is aggregating different projects and allowing a city to clarify their strategy of a particular, you know, theme here. Clearly, you want to have a community-led voice being heard. So I don't think it's more complicated. It's just, you know, making very clear in the governance what is the voice of these citizens, who you are prepared to have as partners alongside, and then open up gradually as you scale.
Okay, well, Agne, is this going to help you?
I hope it really will work. Thanks for your ideas and sharing. There are some things that we are working on, but we also need to do some our homework, for example, what we're planning also to do. And we need to find how can we involve business more and what good pluses we can give to business that they provide us more money. Yeah. So.
Okay, well, we're going to make this even more bankable. Big round of applause to Agne. And lastly, we do not go to one city because a few cities thought, what if we do joint procurement? Then we're much bigger on the market. We probably have a much bigger voice and get a much bigger, better deal. How this would work is presented by Tommaso Busso.
Right. We have heard from a lot of individual cities, their own projects. But the question we always ask ourselves is, right, what can the Capital Hub do to aggregate all of this, to leverage the power that 112 mission cities have to jointly have a bigger voice, as you said, Roger. So we took an example of procurement of electric buses in particular. And we thought, what's the issue right now? Right now, a single electric bus costs, on average, at the European Union, 555,000 euros, including the infrastructure, per one bus. This, for many cities, represents a major hurdle. 76% of it is just bus plus batteries, and the remainder is spread over maintenance and recharging stations. And procurement cycles can take a long time. They can take up to 3, 4, 5 years. We've seen the example of the Danish mobility company that was supported by the EIB, for instance, and even with that support, it took them 3 years to actually deploy their electric fleet. And many other cities that don't have their capacity, don't have EIB support, might take much, much longer. So we said, what if we take the power of 112 mission cities, we collectively negotiate the price in front of producers that normally tend to have very strong leverage against a single city. But what if we do it together? So that would, of course, bring a significant price advantage. We can agree on the technical details with each and every city, have them agree maybe by homogeneous groups of cities that are similar in size and types first, and then look at the other characteristics. And then we can blend capital, as we said. It's been repeated and reiterated multiple times here. We can bring together, and that's the power of the Capital Hub in a way, to convene and leverage the public layer of funding to take the first loss risk, and then leverage and crowd in also that private capital. The additional layer to this is also the fact that we can have a revolving fund around this. Maybe a little more thinking, but with the revolving fund, once we have managed to deploy the fleet, we can also account for the savings and have those feed back into the fund. So the savings compared to having diesel, for instance, because electricity, as we know, electric buses are much more efficient also in production, but also the savings of the collective procurement and the like can all feed into this revolving fund that self-sustains itself and then provides substantial creditworthiness that can attract in more private investors. So having that first layer of public capital and then with the revolving fund, bringing and crowding in more private investor with this creditworthiness. So we are excited to start working on this together and really bringing the capacity and the power of the Capital Hub in convening cities and at the same time all these capital providers for the deployment of this multi-city joint bus procurement.
Beautiful, big applause. Yeah, Gilles, flipping the powers at the table instead of being the small one by becoming the bigger one. What does this do for your risk assessment?
First, I think it's very good for the cost effectiveness, because in a way, you're going to have an economy of scale. you will purchase to a less important price. Then you got also the negative aspect, which is that it will be less tailor-made for each of the municipalities. And you have also the question related to the technology that you're going to use. You're going to pick up one technology that will be used for 112 cities, so meaning that where do you find these technologies? Inside the EU? Outside the EU? Big question. And currently we see, and you were mentioning a project in Denmark, I mean, the technology related to, you've got different technologies for e-buses, especially for loading capacities. So we need also to find a way to give a chance to several technologies. But overall, I think it's a good idea. The other problem, and I'm thinking more for the municipalities, if you manage to have a blended finance, it's good. On the other side, the question is the question of the mutualization of the risk for the municipalities. Whether some municipality, if the municipality A would take a risk on municipality B. So I mean, you've got also these aspects that are to be taken into account. We've worked, for example, in Italy on the hydro bond solution, where you had multi-utilities in the north of Italy, specialized in water, that were raising funds together at a cheaper cost compared to what they would do individually. You have to accept the idea that you mutualize the benefit, but you mutualize also the risk.
Yeah. Simon, what would you give advice to make this also interesting for you?
I think from my point of view, and you mentioned it, Delphine, already, a key criteria for this project would be the governance structure. Because as you all know, election cycles in cities are often like from 4 to 6 years, but we invest for minimum 25 years. So if we are working with only one city, what we do is we analyze the situation, we assess the risk, and we make our investment decision. Here we have 112 cities, so it's not even worth trying to analyze each and every city. You are 100% sure that at some point in the project, I think, there will be a newly elected mayor who says, okay, I don't want electric buses anymore, this is a mess, we have to charge them, blah, blah, blah. And when this happens, and I believe it will happen, what do we do? All we can rely on is the governance structure of the project. We really have to be reassured that when this will happen, the governance structure is strong enough to take this hit, that we will experience in the project. So I think that governance structure will be the key criteria for us to look at from our point of view.
I would initially think you would look at the supplier side. Is there any bus company big enough to supply buses to 112 cities? But both of you more look at the governance and the risk sharing internally than the outside world able to provide this. Yeah. Tommaso, is this advice you can work with?
Yeah, totally. And I think that while the 112 cities is the pool we have access to, I don't think the intention was to pool initially to 112 cities altogether. I think we have the capacity and the knowledge to understand what cities are, more at the forefront, where there is the capacity to then have homogeneous characteristics and capacity to deploy and coordinate in a joint similar fashion. But then also to the point regarding changes in governance, yeah, that's of course what a risk that we can bring as a flip side of the benefit of the reduced costs. All the work that we're doing with the cities also brings us more knowledge and more awareness on how we can coordinate this governance, etc. And we can't predict election cycles, but we hope that when it comes to economic benefits, those speak beyond the simple political intentions. And unless you're very politically biased, you cannot deny the economic benefits of some of this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Big round of applause for you. Can we go to skip 2 slides and then we go to the 4th question in Mentimeter. We want to hear from you. What do you take as a learning from this if you go to the office on Monday? What are you going to say to your colleagues, especially the ones of the finance department, and say, hey, this is a learning we have. This is something we might have to go different. So can we skip this one? Yeah, we're out of time. We started a bit late. Also, we skipped this one. Yeah. What lesson do you take home for your financial quests? I look at the experts. I was really impressed by all 5 projects, especially on what they want to do, how much investment they need, and what they see in returns on social, environmental, ecological, all these things, only how much revenue are they going to get and what's the number of their return, that is what I haven't always seen so much. Is that also your takeaway?
I think we've seen different examples where sometimes you had quite clear cash flows from the assets that were to be financed, and sometimes it was less obvious. And this is exactly why you've got public authorities, in fact. When you have positive externalities on an economic point of view, most of the time it's very difficult to materialize the cash flow that will come and pay for that. I'm thinking about the green belt, for example. I think it's very useful, very impactful, but it's very difficult to materialize the cash flow that will result from that. And this is maybe where the role of the public sector is. When there is a general interest, when there is not an evident cash flow that will come out of this asset to invest on the long term for the citizens. Then on other transactions, like I'm thinking about the district heatings or the public buses, you need to rely on the cash flow that are coming from the end users, from the value that you create if you manage to materialize. And this is where we can make the deal bankable, and we have to work on governance. But I think that it's not adequate for all the type of assets we finance.
Simon, if people would come to your office and pitch and say they want the money, what advice would you give them to add or change to their pitches to make them more bankable by you?
Well, I think a key point is to look at the project as a whole. So obviously return and cash flows matters, but also, as it was mentioned already, like government structure, what the risk assessment is, what's the also capital structure, who will be the other partners we'll have to invest with. All these elements are really key into when we are trying to assess globally a project. That would be a key point for us.
Yeah. Delphine, I see a few things coming on. A lot is governance, super important. And also some people say, hey, we need to be bolder. There's much more possible than we think. And some keep saying, you have to look for the right funder for the right project because not everything is fundable by everybody. So look carefully. Which of these three do you think is most important?
I think it's working on the initial idea that we received from a city and being quite ruthless about how to scope the project. And sometimes ideas evolve so that we get to an alternative project to be financed or an alternative structure that really works. We just heard a very different type of project on the adaptation side, on the mitigation side. They are all challenges of cities, but they raise very different issues in their own right. We can create some blueprints, nevertheless, from these kind of categories of projects. So I would tend to have a discussion with the city and see what is the priority for you to decarbonize on the key pillars. You know, do you have what you need in terms of transportation, district heating, you know, all your big, you know, pillars. And then what are your adaptation plans? And from there, we can find the key projects that would matter.
Wonderful. Well, I saw Carlotta's pictures, maybe the most colorful of all the sessions with buses, trams, and all kind of nice green things going around. Let's hope you find financiers for all these beautiful projects, because not only are they going to make your cities safer, more social, and more green, but also they are going to make you save a lot of money in the future on the costs that you otherwise would have. Maybe next year we just put a 1 billion fund here and make people really pitch for the money, because I like this and I really see the bankers in you coming. You start to speak that language. We are going to wrap up this session with a group picture. So first, a big round of applause to our speakers. And then I'm wishing you all the luck also making your project more bankable. And now everybody come forward, as much forward as possible. Then the photographer will join me on stage. We're going to see how much light we can get into this room to make you all not bankable, but picturable. And I would say, yeah, you join them, go join them. Also you. You can join. Yeah, go down and stand on the front row. That. Oh yeah. Can we have less stage lights? Because else we have too much. Yeah. Let's kill them all together. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think it's. Oh. Do we have some light here in the front? But I think that's going to be difficult. You just have to really use your flashes for this. So come forward, and like with every photographer, if you can see the camera can see you. So make sure you can see the camera. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And go really into the seat aisles, because if you are out of the chairs, you're out of the picture. So move closer together. Squeeze in, we're all family. Yeah, that looks nice. Now, okay, I think we have most people here. Ah, there's more light coming on here, and then we're going to say cities in 3, 2, 1, cities! Yes, perfect. One more? Okay. Oh, yeah, we're going to wave this one. 3, 2, 1, mission! Yay! Perfect. Thank you very much. I see you back at 11 o'clock for the conclusions. Fuck yeah.